What's up, everyone? How's it going? And if you're hearing this, they let us get to Friday again. So, it's time for another episode of the TheLeaf podcast. In this one, I have a really odd news story. It's not even supernatural, it's just odd. And we're going to go into some stuff that happens in Appalachia, or, as we say it where I'm from, Appalachia. The differences in pronunciation are always so cool to me, how different parts of the same area can say it so differently. I don't know, that's just random. But if you can hear a little bit of background noise or a fan or whatever, it's because it is so humid where I am right now, and the room that I record in does not have AC. So, you'll have to bear with me. But let's waste no more time. This first story that I found, it was originally posted by Oddity Central, and I found it on unexplainedmysteries.com. So when I tell you what happened here, you're going to see why it's just odd. It happened in Spain's Catalonia region. Apparently, the vehicle was pulled over for driving erratically, and because the driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So as soon as the police approached the car after pulling him over, he started being hostile to them and started yelling, "I should have run you over." And then he was asked to take a breathalyzer test. Now, of course, the result revealed that he was way over the limit. The officers asked him to repeat the test to get the confirmation of it. And this is the weird part. Instead of saying, "Yes, I'll do that," he went over to the back of his van and then opened it up to unleash thousands of bees from a hive that he had been transporting. The bees were apparently feeling the mission, and they began to take after and sting the other two men pretty relentlessly. Now they fled to a nearby restaurant to take cover. The beekeeper just pieced out and drove away. The two cops did end up in hospital, because they got all those stings and stuff and had to get checked out. Now later on, the guy actually was arrested by some reinforcements, and then he was acquitted of any wrongdoing. So you can see why that I included something like this. Not only is it weird and bizarre, it's also strange, but in a very different way. Can you imagine, at a traffic stop, if, somebody cut somebody else off and they just get out and unleash, thousands of bees on them? And in some weird way, this reminded me of something that I read about, that the Romans did, I think. When they were setting up for a battle, there were these clay pots that they had, and they heard somebody, obviously in, Latin or whatever, yell, "Release the bees," and these clay pots were then broken, and then swarms of bees began to assault the enemies. But I have to wonder how you train these bees to do that, because it feels like a great way to have something backfire on you. But yeah, there's not really any more to that. I just thought it was really bizarre, and I don't know what's going on in Spain's Catalonia region, but apparently there's some wild stuff going on. So, I'll leave the link to that down in the description. And now, let's get into some stuff that's happening in Appalachia. And I don't know about anybody else, but I've been getting a ton of Instagram reels that are based around Appalachia that are always some crazy shit happening. Now, if I can find out if I'm able to talk about some of those on the channel, on the podcast, then I'll just show them, but I have to look into how that works. But until then, I have this one encounter with a crawler in Appalachia from a little over 4 years ago. It says, "I work on a horse farm, and tonight, while I was feeding my horse, I noticed that they were all spooking at something that was on the other side of the farm, and my boyfriend kept saying that there was a person on the other side of the farm. I thought that he was seeing a tree that looked like a person, until he pointed at where it was, and it looked like an unnecessarily tall person, and then it started to move. I still thought that it was maybe a tree until we got to that side, and the donkeys that were put over there because of coyotes were acting scared, and they aren't normally scared of really anything. And that's when I heard something in the woods. We pointed the headlights over, and then my boyfriend grabbed his shotgun because we both thought it was a person. and then it sounded like it was running away, so I wasn't concerned anymore until we saw one on the property next to the farm, and it wasn't a person. There's no way it was a person, but that's not what scared the both of us the most. That was when I was closing the gate and locking up that whatever it was that was out there started sprinting at me, and I ran to the car, and we got to the main road. It stopped chasing us, and we looked back, and it was roughly 8 feet tall and just standing in the middle of the road. I don't know what I saw, but I do know that it wasn't a person. I don't know if what I saw was a crawler, but I would like to know if it was, and if they're going to cause issues at the farm. So I believe that took place in North Carolina. At least that's where I think it took place. Now, do you think it was a crawler? Because it sure sounds like one to me. And just like any time that I bring up crawlers or have an encounter that has something to do with crawlers, I ask the question, what do you think they are? I've heard tons and tons of theories about what they could be, but then again, who really knows what they are? Because you can't exactly interview them and ask them, I probably wouldn't want to be the one to try to ask it a question and then get chased out of the woods by something that's 8 feet tall and super skinny. Average night in New Brunswick, But better yet, what do you think it wanted on their farm? Do you think that it just wanted the livestock? Do you think that it wanted them? It's really hard to say because a lot of times I read stories and these things seem to have some degree of intelligence, like something more than your typical animal. I've also seen many cases where they seem to have different personality traits, how some are more curious, some are more aggressive, some are more docile and just kind of want to be left alone. This is why I wonder if they have that extra intelligence, not quite human, but something. I don't know what to say it as. And I could just be crazy in that they could be some kind of mangy animal that just kind of happens to look like that. But that doesn't really explain how some of them can change their heights almost. It's really creepy either way. And on this farm too, that it would be surrounded by human energy, I guess is the word. They would know that it's not their territory and they're being invasive. So I have to really wonder, what did they want there? And let me know what you thought down in the comments. And this next one here is from 2021, and I may have covered it before in a video back then, but I don't remember, so we're going to go with it. Anyways, this guy said he was visiting his family at a cabin. It was a remote portion at the bottom of a valley. He says it was surrounded by these old hippie communes and not-so-secret weed farms. There was a military base or something of the sort nearby. He would constantly see military planes that would regularly fly through the valley, seemingly like pilots getting testing hours out. But this one night, he was out drinking by the bonfire in the middle of the night. He was talking with his sister. Everyone else was inside, watching a movie. His sister points out something. It's moving fairly slowly for a plane, and it's blotting out the stars behind it. There's no wing lights or anything, but the silhouette is pretty close to what he knows that a stealth bomber looks like, maybe a bit wider. And then he says for 30 seconds they watched it cruise in their direction, and then the second it passed over, the power went out. And not only that, other electronics stopped working for quite a while. And this is something I brought up before, but I asked the question if you thought that there was a lot of secret tech that was being kind of low-key tested in North America or anywhere else in the world that people were just kind of unaware of. And a lot of people did think that that was the case. I mean, if you look at all the declassified stuff that they did in the 50s and 60s, it's not surprising that they're kind of testing all this stuff out in the populace. Of course, I never think it's okay to test things out on people, especially when they're unaware. But now, another thing that I have to wonder about is how much stuff do they have in that area that just nobody knows about? Because they talk about how in Appalachia there's all these extremely old, deep cave systems, deep mines, all that kind of thing. A lot of them are like locked up now, but I have to wonder if there's something else going on way down there. You may call that schizo or crazy. It's just my genuine curiosity. Like, are all these places only closed off because they're dangerous for people to go in? And there are many places that that's the case. People shouldn't go there because you don't want to end up in a collapse. But I have to wonder with some other places if there's some kind of operation going on down there. Some kind of research. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas because the whole area is so interesting, ancient, and weird, and sometimes it feels like it's cursed. And I say that because in my province, we have a portion of the Appalachians or Appalachians ourselves. We have Mount Carleton. And a lot of the history of mining and lumber and moonshining and all that stuff, it's a shared history here too. But also, do you think that maybe that was just a side effect of the test, and that it wasn't like they were testing the aircraft, but that thing where the power went out and the electronics stopped working just kind of happened by accident? And next up, I have this case that I'll drop the link to in the comment section in the description. You get what I mean. Now, this one happens from 1878, so it's really old. January 3rd, to be exact. Apparently it happened in Caldwell County, North Carolina. A group of prospectors encountered this unusual creature near the area of Globe Valley, and what's said about it is this quote right here. The wild man started toward the party. It took a few steps, stopped still, and began to pound himself in the breast with his ponderous fists. There he stood for 2 minutes, evincing no power of speech. Suddenly, he turned and bounded off with the speed of a deer. The party then repaired to the house. One of the men secured a gun, a pistol, and other articles of warfare, and then went in pursuit of the strange being. They searched the balance of the day, but nothing could be seen of the object of their pursuit. During the search, they ascended the crags of Blowing Rock and discovered a small cave in which was found a bed of leaves and many bones resembling those of an opossum. It is said that this supposed cave has afforded this wild man a home for many, many years. So I know that the first thing that people are going to think of, especially in that area of the country, is Bigfoot. They're going to think that this is 100% a Bigfoot, everything matches up. But what I wonder about is the bed of leaves and kind of basic things like that. It makes me wonder if it's like a leftover Neanderthal or some other missing link type thing. But it very well could be a Bigfoot, since there's no mention of it wearing clothes of any kind or anything like that. I just have to wonder, especially because the area is so ancient. But of course, let me know what you think. Is it a Bigfoot? Is it a feral human? Is it a Neanderthal? Something else? I'd like to hear it. And before I continue, I'm just thinking of this right now. In last week's episode, when I talked about like Fae happenings and Fae encounters, we talked about fairy circles and how one guy, I think it was in Ireland or Scotland, he went in a fairy circle, got taken by the Fae, he came back, and then quickly died because of it. And then someone commented, I cannot remember who, I'm bad for that, somebody commented and said that, what if when they came back out of the fairy circle, all the time that they had missed rapidly caught up to them? And I thought that was really interesting, because I never even thought of that. So let me know what you think about that. Do you think that that's possible? Because it seems pretty plausible to me. But I could be very wrong. I don't know a whole lot about this. I'm just the storyteller. And now I have this very interesting story for you. This was from 2022, I believe. This guy says that he currently lives in a cabin. This cabin sits on 27 acres of land, and this is, of course, in Appalachia. He says that his nearest neighbor is quite a ways away, so You know, when you're all alone, you got a whole bunch of property, sometimes you kind of out doing weird stuff. And in this case, he was out hanging out by himself with his full kit on. And by kit, I mean like he had bought a bunch of stuff for like his guns and all that. He bought a bunch of stuff for it, trying it on to see how it fit, just kind of a guy chilling on his own property. He also had a fire going that was kind of near his front porch. And then as he's walking around, he just loses 2 hours. He wasn't drinking and there was no drugs involved. He says it was 1700 hours, which is about 5 o'clock. It was in the wintertime as well. And then suddenly, it's 1900 hours, 7 o'clock. And when he comes to, the fire that was blazing before is now only embers. And he knows he didn't fall asleep because he was standing up. He figures he would have fallen over if anything like that happened. He was really kind of disturbed by this. He didn't know where those 2 hours went. He decided that maybe he should just bring his stuff inside for the night and just kind of chill in there. Maybe something happened to him. And while he's bringing his stuff in, one trip after another, he sees eye shine of an animal. He grabs his rifle and turns on the optic. He takes a few steps forward and turns on the mounted flashlight. He shines it all around the tree line, all along the mountainside, just scanning for whatever the hell it was. Then he says that his light catches on something. He pauses. He sees this thing that looks kind of like a cat and a dog, but kind of neither as well. The lights are set close together, and he said that the eyes were shining green back to him. He said it had a tail that was really long, but it also stayed off the ground, kind of suspended in midair. He says he couldn't make out the color, but it seemed to be gray, and with a large round head, but no ears to see. He said he didn't know what the hell this was. His breathing kind of intensified. He was trying to calm himself down. He didn't like the idea of anything or anyone watching him, especially at his own house on his own property. He says that he swore at it, and then it just stood there for maybe 10 seconds, and then it started making this low clicking noise that kind of sounded wet almost. And then this thing turned to roaring, but it was kind of bizarre how it sounded. He can't really explain it. He raised his rifle, and then he shot at it. And he said where he hit it would normally take down anything of the sort, but it just kind of turned away like it was uninterested and slinked back into the woods. He went back into his cabin, locked the doors, and drew the curtains, and just tried to go to bed after that. It doesn't say either way, but I don't think that he ever encountered this thing again. So let me know what you think that was, because it's really bizarre. And if you liked this episode of the podcast, feel free to like and subscribe. Feel free to send in a story of your own, and feel free to support the channel a little bit further if you'd like to. I have a PayPal, Patreon, memberships, and super thanks that are all here. And of course, happy 4th of July, and happy belated Canada Day, and I hope everybody has had a good week, is going to have a good weekend, and I hope you'll join me on Sunday for some more cryptid encounters. And yeah, thank you for pulling up a stump, thank you for watching, I'll see you then.